What's poppin' YouTube? This is QC for the Quality Channel, and I am here to go over Netflix's Malcolm and Marie. So we're splitting this up in four parts and then wrapping it up with a little conclusion, but other than that, let's go ahead and dive into this. People tend to forget sometimes about how movies start from a script and screenplay to be later adapted into what we see. These screenplays are what bring the film that we know and love to life. Whether we appreciate the plot, the discourse, or even the imagery in what we watch, it's all brought together by details we don't even see in motion. It's also the reason why Netflix's Malcolm and Marie came to bring a usual playwright style of films that critics and directors appreciate all alike, but also something casuals could enjoy as well. So let's dive into this two-person play made film right now. This whole film was shot in one house with a surrounding marsh forest with what seems to be right before a lake. Felt as if you were watching a real play in real time because of the long acted parts where the camera sits still. This created a vibe you feel when immersed in out of body to give a truly empathetic experience that a moving camera just can't. Kind of like being on a fly on a wall or a street light or just a little, even a painting or a portrait. The expanded shots gave a panoramic view of scenes like the bedroom or just intense close ups like the kitchen and dining table. Either way, while watching, you always felt different with each shot. One shot I did like especially was after them getting home. Malcolm was eating mac and cheese, and the focus made the silence a lot more intense than just any other the shots that they had in that film, because of the fact that you could just garner that reflection that he's feeling after that first initial argument, and that decision he makes right afterwards makes it so much more impactful because you get to see that fallout of what he felt and went through with that. So you notice the camera stillness as well while he was in thought, and how he ended up feeling he was more wrong than that in her in that situation. This leads to Malcolm going to get seconds of that mac and cheese, yet again representing that meal, giving that emotion of how he feels and how the process of this argument was kind of like made and cooked up into the meal he's eating. Maybe more like kind of like a humble pie or something. You know what I mean? Something like that. So like we were saying, this leads Malcolm to go get seconds subsequently, yelling out his inequity and what he feels, which starts up another more in-depth argument than the one before. I only recall about a good 10 to 15 shots of where the camera moved and followed Malcolm and Marie. I was okay with that because of how good those angles made the rest of the film. Overall, the cinematography in this movie was beautiful and made it into something more than a two-person play you would see in the exclusive Basement Bronx Film Club, or we see in rom-coms in New York, or a Philly slam scene in Love Jones or something, you know what I'm saying? Something like that. So like I said earlier, the screenplay and script are what made this film the hype it's come to fulfill. From previews down to the ending, it's all there. Overall, the plot sounding so vague and short showed me how much it goes into a couple of hours. Malcolm, a small-time director on his way to the big leagues, is headed home with his off and on again girlfriend, Marie, from the premiere of his film about a drug addict girl getting her life together. Through dialogue, we learn Marie is an actress and seems happy with the night, yet bothered by something Malcolm did at the after party. They argue and come at each other's necks about petty stuff because of said thing. It seems like a typical couple arguing about unsaid words and miscommunications. I definitely was disappointed at first, thinking I could predict this the way it's going, but boy was I wrong. Yes, it was just a back and forth something But it was far more than that. We were able to see that Malcolm and Marie was more than just a couple with insecurities and passive moments that they don't bring up. We found more complex sides, the more layers were peeled back with each argument. It ended with them finally going to sleep and looking beyond the lake the next morning side by side. But this leads into how they got to that point as individuals. They come to show how flawed and complex they are. This plot was very satisfying because it was introspective and not just same old I'm hurt, you're hurt, so let's hurt each other dialogue. The film shows us the process of Eminem coming to be at odds and later coming to terms with what they've done to each other to move forward. This film shows their relationship as toxic parasites that feed off of each other negatively to justify how much they are victims in this relationship. What came to me first was the stages of grief and trauma and how much this concept correlated with the progression of the arguments, the relationship, the night they had, and themselves as people. We see them physically and mentally changing with each time they had a discussion on something deeper than the last. This was cool to see because of the cinematography and script coming to bring more in-depth play of the acting. You can tell how much Eminem were inevitably coming to bring this conversation into play. A lot of meta discussion, and what meta means is just talking about how self-aware a concept or a previous thing happened. So Marie tells Malcolm how much he used her for his film and uses her reference of the trauma he can never fathom himself. While on the other hand, we see the sadistic manner of Marie coming to hurt Malcolm in the end because of her refusal to believe she can be loved despite all her shortcomings and inequities as an actress and a woman in this relationship. Lastly, we could really see this Venus and Mars dynamic through an age difference that's subtly brought up. Even this little detail explains the stages they feel against one another. They both value something that they don't think is important as it should be. Once acknowledged, however, they could see where one another is coming from. It's like you thought when you were younger, forever, I know for most people, growing up, you thought no one understood you or no one can possibly understand why this is important to you and why not. Like going to the mall or going to the dance, getting asked to prom, whatever, or getting that college degree, getting the scholarship, whatever, all that. Meanwhile, your parents are like 30, 40, whatever, and they're like, there's more to life than that. And it's hard to hear that, you know what I'm saying? Because to you, that is your life right now, but to them, they're past that. And so it's a novelty. It's not important anymore. And this seems the same case for Malcolm and Marie here. However, I like this because it showed that cycle of grief and trauma with them moving on from their pain and the pain they caused each other. They ended up finding that middle ground that a lot of couples don't. And it was painful to watch. But speaking of pain, that seems like what the theme was for it anyway. The message I got from this was something of wanting to show true love and what it costs sometimes. Give granted that some people would like to say that this is not love because of all the stuff they put each other through. However, this is their love and something they thought was worth fighting for. Marie, at the end of the day, knows how hard Malcolm can be when it comes to expressing himself, and yet she still finds a way to get him through it. We come to understand this, although they cannot show their appreciation for one another like they should, they understand the problem. The theme I get from this is pain and how much love causes when it's hard to get what's right from that person who doesn't do it. And sometimes it all ends with that one thing, just saying thank you or just appreciating one another through that love, and which makes that painful. And it really drove that point home. Those two words, thank you. Because that's all Marie wanted Malcolm to say, was two words. Yee. No, I'm just kidding. But she wanted him to say thank you. That was it. She truly loves this man because of the loyalty he's shown her, despite what she's done to him, sleeping with his friends, overdosing, taking drugs, losing that passion for acting. All that stuff was hurting Malcolm and making him almost resentful. She messed up their love with drugs in the first place, and he still stuck by her. The fear of losing Marie made Malcolm somewhat how he is in the film. However, that film and great reviews that Malcolm received in return is a product of both their work, bad and good. She wanted a thank you, not because she wanted recognition, but she wanted it because of how much she came from and how much pain she was in as well. The thank you she wanted was an acknowledgement of how far they've come together and how much she does without asking for that thank you. She felt inadequate and robbed, and these are points that we're talking about right now. He felt angry and unfulfilled. He looked for others' approval, and she did all what he wanted. He didn't appreciate her, and she could see past her. She couldn't see past her failures. And that really wrapped up that whole each of the arguments from what it seemed like. You know what I'm saying? But still, after all that, and when we got to that climax of the movie, he still couldn't say thank you. She's like, Malcolm, I'm pleading with you. I know how you are. I know that you can express your emotions through this film. I know that you mean well. But I just want to thank you. All I want is to thank you. And what does he do? He only gives her 2 teardrops because he can verbally or physically express that, but he can't thank her. And she just gets up and leaves for a second, and they go back to sleep. But the muse who he used, but it was himself that he wrote about and decided to use her for all his shortcomings and hardships. This is why she wants to thank you. But I liked it because it wrapped up as, you know, it was a silent acknowledgement. Like I was saying, it still was there. And give granted, it was more of a unsatisfyingly resolution for Marie and Malcolm. But how I saw it anyway, I saw that they got through that night, and, you know, give granted it wasn't raining, but it was the darkest time. It went from 1 to maybe 5 or 4 in the morning just arguing about things and things they thought was important. And that's what really drove that point home for me, was that, you know, it's not all sunshine and daisies when you're in a relationship. It takes time and work on one another to make that happen. And I'm glad that they were able to show this. Give granted, it shouldn't be as toxic as such, but I feel that this was a great example of how some people's regular love lives are, you know? But what they could use an advice for was that. But overall, though, I liked it, and I liked the film, and I think if they had more of a budget, they probably could have done more with what they wanted. You know, if it was up to me, I feel that I wish they could have had a more resolution and a different, like a closing dialogue. It kind of just said, you know, they turned off the lights and said thank you. And I feel like maybe that was that thank you. And maybe he never thanks her, and he finally thanked her in the movie. And so maybe that was it. But he ended up looking for Marie again at the end, and found her outside, and they just stood next to each other, and they just let it happen and stood out before the sun. So either way, when it comes to Malcolm and Marie with this film, I'm just glad I could say thank you for just giving me a great representation of how sometimes love isn't all it's cracked up to be, and sometimes it's hard work and not just till death do us part. It's more than that. But overall, subscribe and comment below, and let me know, did you agree with this? Did you have a different take on it? Talk to me. I want to see some. Let me know. But other than that, Subscribe, like the video. Or also let me know if you guys have any other things you want me to cover. But yeah, my name's QC. This is Quality Channel, and I am out of here.